The RDX, from what I've seen so far in the last couple days, has been a fantastic SUV, and it is fairly feature-packed, especially as you look at something like the A-Spec model. In this video, I'm going to unpack the RDX and teach you everything that you need to know about this ride. Pricing for the RDX in Canada starts at around $57,500 versus $46,000 down in the US, with the price going up depending on which trim level you've chosen, and even the paint choice, because some paints do cost extra. This one is in the Urban Gray Pearl, and paired up with the red interior does look pretty nice. I was in a TLX last week though, and that TLX with the white exterior and that red interior, there's just something about it that looked great, but there are some different color combinations to suit your own personal style. You're only going to find the RDX with all-wheel drive. If you're in Canada like me, where we get snow a couple months out of the year, hands down, all-wheel drive is the way to go. Front-wheel drive is okay, it's just that you get better handling all around, in my opinion. This one has 20-inch wheels, and in general, inside of the RDX, you're going to find either 19s or 20s with differing styles. This one here is kind of got like a little black with some metallic highlights throughout, so I would probably get them fully hydro-dipped so that they're black instead. I was in a TLX last week where it had a nice matte gray finish, and that one looked so good. But this one's okay too. It would be kind of cool to get a painted red caliper as well, just to kind of make it pop a little bit more. The front end style of the RDX is pretty simple. It's just reminiscent of a number of other vehicles in the Acura lineup. It'd be kind of cool to see something a little bit bolder with the grille design, but it's nice and simple otherwise. You're going to find LED headlamps inside of every trim level of the RDX. Nice simple design, lights up nicely at nighttime. And then technology-wise, you're going to find the option for the forward park sensing system and a front-facing camera. So that's not standard across every trim level of the RDX, it's just going to be for the higher trims. But that front-facing camera and that forward park sensing system is useful in my opinion. Underneath the hood of the RDX, there's only a single engine choice that's available, and that's this 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. Power-wise, it pushes out 272 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. Just going to be good enough for most people. It's got some balls. So let's get back up to highway speed, going into sport mode here in 3, 2, and paddle shifters. 100. So, what, 8 seconds-ish, roughly, which, I mean, it's not too bad by any stretch. Is it the most powerful Acura you're going to get into? Is it the best? No. But again, if you're just looking for something A to B, no complaints. And then underneath the hood is a pretty simple design. There's a little Acura engine cover. You can easily check change oil if you're doing things yourself. You can also top up your wiper fluid to the left. And then there's easy access to the battery along the right-hand side. Then looking at the warranty inside of the Acura world, it's slightly different from Canada to the States. So in Canada, we're 4 years for our basic, 5 years for powertrain. Down in the States, it's 4 years for the basic, but 6 years for the powertrain instead, with varying mileage. And then you always have the option of increasing your warranty at time of purchase if you need that extra peace of mind. But if you're leasing, doesn't really matter anyways. I do stress this in more of my videos recently. You just want to make sure you're taking care of your ride. Regular oil changes, regularly scheduled maintenance. Acura vehicles, Honda vehicles are known for going 3, 4, 500,000 plus kilometers, so a few 100,000 miles, but it does hinge on you treating the car right. Make sure to get yourself in for regularly scheduled oil changes, whether that's through the dealership or even if you're doing it yourself, not a big deal. Just take care of your ride, and these cars absolutely will take care of you as an owner. Then, looking at the size of the RDX, so just for comparison, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm still towering over this ride, but getting inside of the first row, not difficult. That's easy enough. And then the second. Equally as easy. Nice. And then one good thing is that you are going to find assist handles across all 4 doors if you need them. The RDX has a little walkaway lock feature. So as long as it's enabled, start walking away, it's going to lock the doors for you. And then you've also got the flexibility of using the key fob for some pretty neat tricks. But if you want to walk through on the fob and how it works, you'll find that in the description. See there? So the side view mirrors in the ride are power folding. They've got turn signals built in, along with a side-mounted camera. And then they're also auto dimming. So later on at night, if somebody's being an idiot, flashing their high beams, that's going to dim out automatically for you. There's intelligent access here. So you can push there in order to lock the doors. You can also then slide your hand in order to unlock. Oh, we'll get there in a sec, but along the door. See there? So there's a nice little suede highlight. You're going to find driver seat memory, along with a little speaker here. And then you've got a series of different controls here. So control your side view mirrors, all of your window controls. There's a little bit of storage and the release for the trunk. You're going to find either a 12 or 16-way adjustable seat inside of the RDX. So forwards, backwards, up and down, adjust your backrest, and then a multi-way lumbar support on top of that. But the red seats inside of this ride. Oh, the red interior in general, like I'm usually a bigger fan of going for darker interiors, but the red one, it's just so different than what you're going to find. And I like how there are black highlights throughout still. So black headliner, black all the way throughout the dash too. But spacing wise, so I'm 6 feet tall, and with the driver's seat as far down as it's going to go, which is normally how I would drive in this car, you're looking at, ooh, what's that? 3.5-ish, maybe 4 inches of headspace. It's not the most amount of space inside of this ride, but there still is a pretty good amount of space at the same time. No complaints there. The seat's comfortable. You've got a multi-way headrest adjust as well. Taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Acura RDX. This is the only setup that you're going to find, and I love it because it's got traditional gauges with a tiny little digital cluster screen too. But let's dive in and I'll show you everything that you need to know. The first thing is that the steering wheel inside of the ride is going to be manual telescoping. So it doesn't matter which trim level you're in. So in, out, up and down to find that perfect position. Once you do, click it in order to lock it back into place. The seat also has the option for driver seat memory. I know it's not the steering wheel, but still. So you can set your driver seat up the way that you'd like to. And once you've done that, you're just going to hit set and then either 1 or 2 for it to remember your own personal profile. There's a benefit there, obviously, if you've got multiple people driving. Steering wheel inside of the ride is going to be heated. Along the top left-hand side there, or I guess top right of the left pad is going to be your button. So you can toggle it on this way, and it's heated all the way around. And there are so many different buttons, so we'll save the buttons for last. The car has paddle shifters. So you've got your minus on the left side, plus on the right-hand side. So if you wanted to drop gears in order to be able to shoot up your RPM gauge to get some speed to go forward faster, that's available. If you needed to rely on engine braking, you could hit the down button there in order to be able to drop gears too, in order to slow the vehicle down faster. But if you've never used paddle shifters before and you want to actually know how they're used and the best way to use them, check down in the description of this video. I've put together a pretty comprehensive walkthrough explaining how paddles work, when you want to use them, etc. Stick along the left-hand side, you've got a few different options here. So you've got different light modes. So what I'd recommend is being in the auto mode. And the big reason why is because if the vehicle recognizes that high beams and things like that are needed, it turns them on automatically. If somebody's oncoming, turns them off before turning them right back on. But you saw there, so you can't permanently lock your high beams out when you're in the auto mode. You have to be in the headlamp mode instead, push away to turn those high beams on, pull towards you to turn them off, but you can flash out your high beams regardless of the mode that you're in. And then from there, you can also turn fog lamps on, off if you've got them. Then you've got your blinkers, obviously, from there. Along the right-hand side are going to be for your wipers. So 1 down is going to be your main intermittent mode. When you're in that 1 level down, you could then use the little rocker switch in the middle in order to adjust out how fast or slow rain's hitting that windshield. And you go to crazy modes too if you'd like to. Along the right-hand side, you can also adjust your rear wiper. There's also a rear camera wiper, so if you push and hold down, that's going to get the rear wiper fluid going, and that can also clear off the rear camera for you too. There's a button on the tip of the right stick, and that button is going to bring up your front-facing camera. And then from there, if you push it again, it's going to get you your side-by-side views and your 360 view and off. If you shift yourself into reverse, you've got your backup camera as the main cam, along with your 360 view too. back into park in order to turn that off. Then you could push again in order to turn that camera off completely. But pretty straightforward there. But let's go through some different buttons. So the ones on the right side here, so the right pad, with the exception of this little feller. So this guy here is going to be for cruise control. You can toggle cruise control on by pushing the button here. And once that's toggled on, once you're at the speed that you'd like, you're going to push down in order to set your speed. You could then increase or decrease 1 kilometer, 1 mile per hour by pushing up or down. If you push and hold up or push and hold down, it'll bring you to the nearest 5 or 0. So let's say if you set it at 47, push and hold up, it'll bring you to 50, 55, 60, etc. Push and hold down, it'll do the opposite. You can hit the brake to cancel your speed. You can hit cancel to cancel your speed. Then you can push up in order to resume your previously set speed. This little feller is a distance indicator, so it's how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you. So that's for your adaptive cruise control. So let's say if you've got it set at 60, car in front of you slows down, yours is going to brake based off of how close or far you've got it set here. Level 1 is okay on just residential streets. Stop and go traffic is arguable. And then level 2 or 3 on highways or interstates, again, just depending on your own comfort level. If you're using adaptive cruise in slippery, snowy conditions, you ideally want to be 4 away at the very, minimum, for sure. But one neat thing is that if you take that same gap adjustment button, if you push and hold it, that's going to turn you into traditional cruise. So there's either adaptive or traditional. Traditional is your old school cruise. So you set it at 100. If the car in front of you slows down, yours does not brake. So you've just got to pay attention. But I'm a bigger fan of using the adaptive cruise control system in every street. But if you want to walk through and a live demo of using cruise control, you'll find that in the description of this video. There's also this little guy, and that one is going to be a lane keep or lane follow assist. So if the vehicle recognizes the lane markings, that icon is going to go green. And then it's not full self-driving, but if you lose focus for a second, it's going to keep you nice and balanced in your lane. It's a phenomenal system, so you can keep your hands off the wheel for about 10 to 12 seconds or so before you get a message inside of the cluster saying that steering is required. But all of these systems work really well in tandem. And then you've got this rocker to move between all of the different options here. And then the rocker along this side in order to move between options in your head-up display. So the buttons along the left side, this one is your power button. So that's going to turn audio on or off. You can also use the switch along the top right under the screen in order to adjust your volume or toggle audio on or off that way. Adjust your volume there. There's a voice command prompt where you can navigate using your voice. You can change radio stations and a number of other things. So definitely recommend getting a hang of that one. If you've got a phone connected, so Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, you do a long push and hold on that button. That's going to bring up either your Siri or your Google Assistant. And then you've got an app button, back button, and then a little scroll wheel specifically for the head-up display, which we'll touch on last. Down by your left knee, you could adjust the head-up display if your vehicle has the head-up display, so you can tilt it. You can also increase, decrease the brightness. I always recommend keeping yourself on the max available brightness though. There's the park sensing system, so that beeping that you get as you get closer to obstacles, you can toggle that on or off. You can turn on your windshield defroster. And then from there, there's a hot button press to get to all of your safety settings. Toggle traction control on or off. There's your brake hold here too. So if you come down to a complete stop, take your foot off the brake, the vehicle's not going to move. And then there's also your electronic parking brake. So to turn it on, all you're going to do is push in. To turn it off, you hit the brake and then pull out in order to make that happen. Then, taking a peek at the cluster screen inside of the ride. So you've got your tachometer off to the left-hand side, speedometer off to the right, and these are traditional locked-in gauges, so not digital. The icon on the top left-hand side is for your safety systems. So there's, again, that button by your left knee. You could toggle any of these different safety systems off if you want to, so the lane keeping system, things like that. I just honestly recommend keeping all of these things turned on. It just makes the most sense. If you've got your adaptive cruise control system or regular cruise toggled on off, that lane keeping system, etc., the screen here is going to look slightly different. You've got your current speed limit based off of the road that you're currently on. And then if we were to hop out for a second, you've got your engine temperature along the left side, your fuel gauge along the right-hand side there. And then you've currently got your direction that you're facing, your total odometer, the gear that you're in, outside temperature too. So let's go through, and we're going to use the little rocker switch along the right side of the steering wheel to move between all of our options. So you've got your trip A. If you swipe across, you can get your A versus B counters. In order to reset, if you push and hold, that's going to highlight and then center you back out to 0 if you'd like. There are a few different ways that you can set it up in the infotainment system as well. If you wanted to have it set so that your trip counter is going to reset every time you turn the car off or every time that you refuel. There's also navigation, so that's just a basic compass. But if you've got an active route going inside of the infotainment system, so I'm just going to show you here. Let's just go to a quick resend and then just search. So it's not full map and cluster, but you've at least got turn-by-turn directions that are available inside of this screen. Kind of nice. Cancel back out, brings you back to a bit of basic compass. You've got your basic maintenance information, so your oil level, which you could reset if you're doing things out yourself inside of the infotainment system. Moving down, you can see your tire pressure, so slightly out of whack there. And your all-wheel drive handling, so you can see which axle is getting which amount of power. You can see if there are people sitting down, whether or not they're plugged in. There's a basic minimalist look too, so if you don't like all of the extra stuff, you're just like a blank screen there. Down to all of your safety info, so if you push in, you could toggle all of these systems off. So the first one is your road departure mitigation. So if you start to veer over into another lane, you'll get a little vibration letting you know. There's your blind spot system, so if somebody enters the blind spot on either side, it'll let you know. The beeping that you get. Your low speed brake controls there, your collision mitigation. So if you're potentially going to get into a collision, it can give you a heads up. So you can toggle these ones off. I don't recommend it, but you could if you really wanted to. And then you could also show different things. And this is specifically your sport gauges. So hold on, watch this. If it's always on, you can see your turbo boost as well as your G meter too. That's going to be when you're in the sport mode. I normally just recommend say sport mode, because if you change out to your sport mode now, so you've got a few different primary modes, but inside of the sport mode, it brings up those gauges. I just think that makes sense. That looks really good too. I like it. And then moving down to the bottom, you can also change up your measurement units. So do you want to be in either US or, and you can see there, so it's obviously not going to change the main gauge just because that's locked into place. But if you wanted to change out everything along the bottom there, so your distance, etc., you can do that if you'd like. There's some buttons just behind the right stick, and that's going to let you increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. Then taking a peek at the head-up display inside of the ride. So if you've got it, it would show up there. The button down by your left knee, you could move the head-up display up or down if you wanted to make it easier to see, just based off of your own height. You can adjust the brightness, and I always just recommend keep yourself in maximum brightness, because if you wear polarized sunglasses, it can actually be pretty tricky to see the head-up display. Yeah, you can see there. It is slightly visible with polarized glasses. It just is trickier to see. You can hit the app button along the steering wheel, and that's going to bring up this little screen. So you could select between different apps that are available. So navigation, if you wanted to look at gas stations, point of interest icons, and things like that, you can select it right here. So if we just select one of these.
Now turn left.
So you can see you've got your turn-by-turn directions there. If you move back into your app screen again, you could, let's see, if we go to navigation, cancel route, and that just cancels the route out for you. So pretty straightforward. Hitting the app screen brings you into different views. So you can select your driving view. So you could move left or right in order to be able to select different views. I just go all of the available options there. Let's see here. You can customize apps. So what do you want showing up inside of that screen? So do you want all of these showing up, yay or nay? You can reorder them if you'd like to. So if you wanted them in a different order, you could. So all you do is select, and then you can move it up or down as necessary. So simple change. And then you've got all of your different sources. So SiriusXM, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, AM, FM, USB audio. If we hop into any of these, like FM radio, you can see all of the stations that you previously favorited, or you can swipe across to get to all of your recently listened to stations. And that's the same, whether it's SiriusXM, AM, FM. So it's kind of neat that that's available. So if we go SiriusXM, recents versus favorited stations. Taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Acura RDX. This is the only infotainment system that's available inside of this ride. Now one thing is that as I'm moving through, you'll notice that I'm not touching the screen, and that's because it's not a touch screen. It's actually just a display screen. So in order to move through the infotainment system, down the middle, you've got a few different options, so buttons and trackpads. You're going to use the trackpad in the middle in order to move through and do the majority of features and functions that you're after. There's a back button, home button, and then there's a card button. So the card button here and then the swipe here is going to be for the pad along the right-hand side. So you can swipe up or down in order to move to different options. You can push the outer right button in order to get to all of your available cards that way instead. On the screen, you can swipe to go left or right, and then you can also swipe up or down this way. And then if you tap the very outside, so you can also just move a find page up or down that way instead. So it's kind of tricky getting used to this, but one nice thing is that you can also use the voice command prompt on the steering wheel to do most things. So you can navigate using your voice, you can change radio stations and things like that instead. Starting off with navigation. You can see there, we've got our basic map. You can hit the button along the outside if you wanted to change up your heading type. You can hit this one if you wanted to show different layers, so showing traffic, point of interest icons, things like that. You can explore the map. You could zoom in or out this way. You can tap menu to get to some different options. So if you wanted to change up the map view, do you want to be in 3D, 2D? Do you want to change up your color scheme for day or night? In the auto mode, the vehicle is going to determine whether you're in the day or the nighttime mode, and then it'll flip you out automatically, just depending on how bright it is outside. From there, you can change up whether or not buildings or landmarks are showing up, traffic view, etc. Calculate, you can have either the fastest or the shortest route available. You could calculate route preferences, so do you want to avoid highways, toll roads, ferries, and a number of other options. Let's see here, nothing else exciting here. You can clear your history, so this is a press car, so at the end of it, I'm going to clear my history for any addresses that I've previously searched for. And then you can look at nearby point of interest icons, or you can hit find. Now, there is the set home address button there. So one of the nice things there is that if you've got a home address saved up, you could hit the voice command prompt and say navigate home, and then it would navigate to whatever address you have saved inside of that screen. Then you can also set up additional favorited options. You could browse for different destinations, look at your recents, downloaded places, and easily search for addresses. So same idea, searching for addresses you can do using the voice command prompt if you want to up that way. That is probably the easiest way to do it, because you can also just use your finger here in order to be able to type in different characters. So you can start typing that way, and at any point in time, you can then click. So we're just going to go to a point of interest icon, so just to Tim Hortons. So let's swipe and do one that's a little bit further away. So you can click the one on the left side there, and that's going to give you all of the information about that location. So you could add it to favorites. If your phone was connected, you could call. You can see different routes. So if there are different routes available to get there, so the shortest, fastest, etc., you can choose between any of these different options. And then pressing back, you can then start route.
Now turn left.
Now, on the map, if we go back here, you can hit the guidance button to see what turn you have to do next. You can get back into some menu settings. You can cancel a route. You can also find other options. So if we cancel, we can go cancel find. So let's actually do this. Let's go ahead and look at some recents. Recently looked for that Tim Hortons, so let's click back there. Left. And we want to find another option here. So if we go search, maybe let's search for a gas station. There we go. And if we look for different gas stations available, and let's just go ahead and hit go on one of these ones. Do you want to add it before your next destination, after your next destination, or just start new route? So essentially what we're doing here is we're creating a waypoint. So if you wanted to add it before your next destination, that means that we're going to go to gas station first, Tim Hortons second, or Tim Hortons first, gas station second. So let's hit one of them.
Now turn left.
And same idea, it's going to give you those next directions. You can detour, or you can just hit cancel in order to cancel the route out. So straightforward. Factory navigation, very easy to use inside of this ride. And that means next up is going to be adding in a phone. So as of right now, you can see that no phones are connected. We're going to start off on the Apple side of things. So what you're going to do is hit connect phone on your device. So let's go connect new device, and you're just going to Bluetooth. And we're waiting for, there we go, hands-free link to show up. Pin numbers there match up, so let's go ahead and pair and pair. Do you want to allow contacts and favorites to sync up? This is not my car, so I'm going to say no to that one. And you can stop here, so you're now connecting over Bluetooth, so you can make phone calls, and you can also navigate using your voice, stream audio from your phone, things like that. But you also have wireless Apple CarPlay. It is backwards compatible, so if you wanted to, you could use a USB Type-A cable, and you're plugging in inside of the armrest, and you have to make sure it's a data transfer cable, so it needs to have that data transfer icon on, or else CarPlay wouldn't work here. But if you're running into issues where CarPlay won't even come up, or you're running into issues with CarPlay, check down in the description of this video for some fixes that you can try. I'm just going to tap change to CarPlay, and just going to make sure that's enabled, that's perfect, and continue. And then on your phone, you're going to get a message here. Do you want to use CarPlay with hands-free link? So you want to make sure you do that, or else CarPlay just wouldn't work. And it'll take a second, and look at that. or connected. Hold on, let's go back to our home screen on CarPlay. But that looks nice, I think. Scroll out and let's pause that one. But look at this. So you've got CarPlay here. You can hit this little icon along the top left if you wanted to get to a little split screen. Back to a full screen. I just think full screen looks better. You can see your current time and then your connection level, and then these ones here are which apps were open last. So your latest open maps, audio application, or your miscellaneous application. You've got your battery level, and then you've got this button along the very bottom, which is going to bring you to your icon view. This screen here is going to be locked into place, so there's no way to adjust it. So you're always going to have whatever map was open last on your phone. There's a search box, and then whatever audio was playing. If you hit the button on the very bottom left, that's going to bring you to this icon view, and you can swipe across to get to all of the available apps inside of Apple CarPlay. You've got Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze that are available. I'm personally a bigger fan of using Waze, and a big reason why, so if we zoom out for a second here, as you start to drive, if people note that there are accidents, or let's say if there's a speed trap and things like that, people are generally pretty good at marking that stuff off. And then you can also mark stuff off yourself. So let's say if you're driving and you see that there's a speed trap set up, you can mark traffic, police, crashes, hazards, and a number of other things. So that's my own personal preference, but you've got different maps that are available. Hoopla is a library app, Live One is a radio app, and then things like that. So the downside is that CarPlay does not have video playback support. So it's strictly going to be audio regardless of the app that you're using, but this is feature packed. You can adjust some basic settings. So do you want it to be driving focused? And you can also change up the appearance, but also the wallpaper. So if there's a color scheme that works better for you, you'd have the flexibility of being able to change it out to something more unique. And then on the steering wheel, there's a voice command prompt. If you do a short button push, that's going to be the command prompt for the actual vehicle. But if you take that same button, if you do a long push and hold instead, that is going to bring up your Siri assistant. So a short button push is going to be the assistant for the screen. A long button push and hold is going to be your phone assistant. And you've got the flexibility of adjusting these icons out a tiny little bit. So on your phone, if you go into Settings, General, and then CarPlay, you're going to find your vehicle, and then you can either forget it or you can customize. So you can customize the layout. So let's say if you wanted podcasts along the top and you prefer to use Waze, you can drag that along the top as well. And then anything with a minus arrow next to it or minus next to it, you can remove it from the screen. And it actually does fully remove it. So if we swipe across, you can see there the icons have been deleted. But it saves it on the phone, so you can add them back in if you'd like to. But if you've played around with the layout too much and you really don't like what you've done, on the phone, the top right side, there's a reset button. So you're just going to hit reset, reset, and that's just going to bring you back to the factory default layout. You can hit the home button, and then you've got a few other options here. So if we swipe across into settings, you can go to your connections, and then you've got Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. So if you look at Apple CarPlay, you can see the device that we've connected. You can connect through in order to disconnect. And what that's doing is disconnecting from CarPlay. And then if you go back to your Bluetooth, you've got the iPhone that's been connected there. So you'd be able to reconnect for audio, for phone calls, or for both. But it's that easy setting up Apple devices inside of the Acura RDX. Setting up Android devices is the exact same process. So if you weren't on this Bluetooth screen, again, all you're going to do, well, if you didn't have a phone connected, you could just tap phone. But if another phone is already connected, you're just going to go settings, connections, Bluetooth, and then just connect a new device. And then on your device, you're just looking for, there we go, hands-free link to show up. So we're just going to connect through. Pin numbers match up, so let's go ahead and hit OK there and pair there. Do you want to allow access to contacts and messages? This is not my car, so I'm saying no to that one. And same idea, so you can stop here. So you're connected over Bluetooth, so you can make phone calls and stream audio, but you can also enable Android Auto. And same idea, it's wireless Android Auto, but it is backwards compatible with that USB Type A cable that has a data transfer icon. And you can see there, a few seconds in, all we have to do on our phone now is just hit continue, and that is going to let you connect to Android Auto. Look at that. Nice full screen capabilities here. On the outside, you've got your current time, connection, and battery level. You've got your map and then some other icons there along with your Google Assistant. Same idea, you can do a long button push and hold if you wanted to activate the assistant for your phone. And then you've got other options here. So if you wanted to, you can go full screen map just by hitting the map icon. So it's going to be a nice full screen. If you then tap the button along the very bottom there, that's going to bring you into a little split screen again, or you can hit it one more time to get to icon views. But if you've got Waze installed on your Android device and Waze is not showing up, check down in the description of this video. I've put together a little walkthrough explaining how you can add Waze and other icons and other apps to the device here. You've got the flexibility of customizing these icons a tiny little bit. So on your phone, if you search for Android Auto, you're going to go into Android Auto settings, and then Android Auto settings gives you a bunch of options, but we're looking for Customize Launcher. So you're just going to click Customize Launcher, and then that gives you a bunch of options. Anything with a check mark next to it, you can remove it from the screen if you want to, or easily tap to add it back in. There's a hamburger icon along the outside, so let's say if you wanted to adjust these icons, you can just do a push and hold on the icons here in order to be able to drag them around the screen. So if you wanted them set up slightly differently, you could do that, but it's not dynamic the same way it is on the iPhone side. So in order for these changes to come into effect, you just have to hop back to the home screen. You're going to swipe across into your settings. You're going to go Connections, Android Auto. You're going to go into Android Auto, so the device there. You're going to disconnect from Android Auto. You're going to then reconnect. And a second here, reconnect that way. And it'll take a second to launch back in. And the changes that we've made have now come into effect. So not dynamic, but you can still adjust it that way if you'd like to. Hopping back home now, and then if we go back to Connections, you've got Bluetooth. So actually, why don't we disconnect from Android Auto first? So we've got disconnect there. If we hop back into Bluetooth, we've got both phones that have been connected. So if you want to, you can be hooked up to one phone for phone calls, and then the other phone for audio. So if you don't want phone calls, you wanted audio, you could do that. So you can do a mix and match. So you can either be hooked up to Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, not both. But you can see here, the icon is grayed out from audio, which means you're strictly going to get phone calls on one phone, strictly going to get audio with no phone calls on the other. So you can do a mix and match that way. You can hit options along the top right side in order to toggle Bluetooth off. And then if you go into either device, you can hit the options icon again in order to look at different options, including deleting the device and delete. And that's removed the first phone. Let's go ahead and options and delete the second and back. And it's that easy setting up Android and iPhone devices inside of the RDX. Hopping back home in, next up, let's go to media. So media, you've got SiriusXM, FM radio, swiping across, there's Bluetooth audio, USB music, AM radio, etc. So a lot of options. Let's go ahead and start off on SiriusXM. So when you launch in, you've got your SiriusXM menu here. You can see what channels are available. So if you wanted to go to recents, Christian, college, comedy, etc. So you've got all of your categories. And then you can also change channels this way. Now, if you have channels that you wanted to save, all you're going to do is after you get into whatever channel you'd like to, you could, along the bottom, push and hold. And that's going to then let you remove the favorite. You can replace it, add it to the home page, etc. So if we just go replace, that's going to replace that preset. Or you can add in another favorite from channels, etc. So we can't add that one back in because it's already been saved. But you can easily add in different presets that way if you'd like to. And then deleting is the same way. So you just highlight, push and hold, and then that's going to let you remove the favorite. It's really straightforward. And then if you hit more, you can see other options here. So you can pause, you can scan to different stations on top of that. If you hit the menu button along the top right side, that's going to let you move into different sound settings or SiriusXM settings. So you've got different tuning modes, tune to start, traffic weather setup, and then different basics. So nothing overly exciting there. Sound settings gets you into a boatload of other options. So you can adjust out your treble, mid-range, and bass. These things are all centered out. So what I'd recommend here is listen to one of your favorite songs. And while you're listening to it, adjust these out until it's perfect for you. What I've found is that your bass up a few points, your mid-range centered, and your treble up a point or two gives pretty good audio, in my opinion. But like I said, play one of your favorite songs and then adjust these out as necessary. You can adjust your roof volume, your zones on top of that. So do you want it focused strictly on the driver, on the front, on the rear, or on everybody? And then you can also swipe across in order to do a fine, balance, or fade. So you can have it more focused on people in the front, the back, the right, the left, or recenter it back to the middle as well. Hitting back and swiping up. Nothing exciting there. That's the basics of your sound settings. There's nothing overly exciting at all. If you hop into FM, there we go, you can see there. So FM, so all of your presets along the bottom are broken up between AM, FM, or SiriusXM. And if you go to your station list, that's going to be all of the different stations that are available. If you're new to an area and you're not sure which stations are available, you can hit the refresh icon along the top right-hand side in order to have it refresh the station list. You can scan for stations, you can tune to stations this way as well, so there's kind of like an old school kind of rocker there, moving left or right as necessary. But your best bet, tap the voice command prompt, 97.7 FM.
Playing 97.7 FM.
So you can also tune to different stations using your voice. So I would definitely recommend doing that instead. It's way easier than using the trackpad. And back home, there are basic shortcuts that are available. It's nothing exciting there. Let's see, there's your basic system updates. So if there were system updates, you could run them. Bluetooth audio is there, USB audio. So if you had a USB stick with MP3s on it, plug yourself in the armrest and you can adjust those out. The Alexa app is available. You've obviously got to be logged in order for that to work. There's a hotspot available inside of the ride too, so you do need a data plan in order for that to work. But one of the benefits is that you can use it as a hotspot for different devices. So if you're on the road, you can purchase a device data plan that way. There's ambient light available inside the vehicle. The lowest trim is going to be just one color. And then outside of that, you've got different themes that are available. So you could look at sport mode, different modes there, and then there's a dynamic mode, which is kind of neat because as you shift between different modes, it's going to change up the interior ambient light. And the ambient light colors at night look pretty good, but you can adjust it out to any of these other options if you'd like. And you can also adjust the brightness. So you can have it min versus max. I personally would recommend, let's see, you can link to illumination if you want to, so how bright the screen is. I just say max because it's a subtle look, but it's kind of cool that it's available. Swiping across into settings, which we'll touch on last because there's a lot of settings. And then there are messages that are available too. And moving back across then into settings, which gives us a boatload of options. Starting off with some system settings, you can adjust different volumes. You can adjust things out. So if you wanted your system sounds to be lower, your phone calls to be higher, you've got all of these options, or you can just reset it back to the default settings. Touchpad sensitivity, so the touchpad that we're moving through here, high or low sensitivity. You can adjust the date and time. So do you prefer to be in that military time instead? So 12 versus 24-hour mode. You can easily swap them out. You can adjust your date and time too. And then these are grayed out because you're in the auto mode. So if you wanted to, you can turn auto mode off and then you'd be able to set the date or the time manually. I don't recommend that, just leave it in auto, but you might want to set your time zone. Because if you live somewhere where you straddle a time zone and it's constantly flipping you from one to the other, you can turn your auto time zone off and then you'd be able to manually select an available time zone. And back, your system units are available there too. So do you want to be in either miles or kilometers? Since this is a regular analog screen, as you go to switch out, it's really just going to change the settings along the very bottom. So you can adjust it out this way. You'd also have the flexibility of adjusting your measurement units right through the cluster screen here too. And next up, change out some languages. So English, French, or Spanish are available. Those are region specific. You can do a full data reset, which is going to wipe everything off of the screen. But if you're running into Android Auto, Apple CarPlay issues, navigation issues, it's buggy, there's a way to do a soft reboot, which I'll show you towards the end of the video. There's some basic system information, some advanced options, which none of these, honestly, you're going to need to worry about. You've got some connection options, which we've already seen. So your Bluetooth, you can toggle it off. You can connect to a Wi-Fi network at home or manage Android or iPhone devices that have been connected. You can adjust out the display. So do you want to adjust the brightness out? You can turn the display off completely, toggling it back on. I forgot it does that. Brings you into the basic screen. So if we go back to display, you can turn it into a night mode or a day mode, which means that it's going to get a little bit darker, harder to see. And you can see it also adjusts the map there on the fly too. So what I'd recommend, just keep it in the day mode. It can switch out to night mode automatically, or you can look at some additional settings. So changing out your contrast or black levels. Some basics for, well, basics. Vehicle settings has so many different options available too. Your driving position. So there's seat position at entry exit. So when you go to turn the vehicle off or turn it on. What it's actually going to do is it's going to lower the seat, so it essentially backs it up for you to get in and out of the vehicle a little bit easier. But you can toggle those things off. So if you don't like the easy entry exit, you can toggle it off there. Lighting options, ambient light brightness. Again, we're seeing a few of these things, a few different spaces. Your headlamp timer, so when you go to lock your vehicle, do the lamps just turn off or do they stay on for up to 60 seconds? Moving back into your door setup, you can figure out when the doors automatically lock or unlock. So do you want them to lock when you start driving, when you shift out of park, or do you just never want them to auto lock? Same idea with auto unlock. When you go to lock the door, do you want to get some sort of an audible feedback letting you know? You can also get security relock, so it's automatically going to relock the doors for you. You can also have the side view mirrors fold in. So do you want them to fold in automatically when you go to lock the vehicle, or do you want it to manually fold instead by hitting the button along the driver's side door? So your power tailgate with some options. The big ones here are going to be power tailgate open, so you can actually turn off the power option, so it's strictly going to be a manual liftgate. And then there's also the option for a hands-free liftgate, so you can swipe your foot underneath in order to get inside. And then there are some useful key options too. So key access setup, door unlock. Do you just want the driver's door to become unlocked or all doors? See, do you want to get a beep when you go to lock the vehicle? Do you want to toggle remote start off completely? So if you just don't want to use remote start on the key fob. And then there's also going to be your walkaway auto lock. So if you've forgotten to lock the doors, you start to walk away, it can automatically lock for you. So let's hop outside and I'll show you how a bunch of these work. Once the vehicle's locked, the fuel door here is also locked. So you have to unlock in order to get inside. And then there's also one other trick too. So actually I guess there's two. One of them's a walkaway lock feature. So again, as long as it's enabled, shut the door, start walking away, vehicle is automatically going to lock the doors for you. And then there's a window down trick too. So if you push the unlock button twice and hold in the second push, so you're going to go 1, 2 and hold. Watch this. So the windows go down. You can release in order to pause it part way, but if you push and hold twice again, so 1, 2 and hold, it's going to continue this process. And not only is it rolling down the windows, it also opens up the sunroof. I love all of these features. The auto window down is pretty cool. I'd love it if it was back up too, but at least you've got that window down mode. With your meter setup, the big two here are going to be A versus B reset timing. So let's say if you're using the vehicle for business purposes and you wanted to be able to have the trip A or trip B counter reset automatically, you can have it reset when you go to refuel the vehicle, when you turn the car off, or manually reset. So useful if you're using it for a business vehicle. Let's see here, different alarms, turn-by-turn displays. So do you want to get those turn-by-turn directions inside of the cluster when you've got a route going? And that's strictly for factory nav. So if you've got your phone connected through Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, turn-by-turn directions would not show up there. It's strictly for factory navigation. Rear seat reminder, if you open up the second row doors in an ignition cycle, it's going to remind you when you turn the car off to check the back seats. There's some speed limit info, which that's not exciting. Not gonna put that one on there. Driving assistance, basic safety settings here. So with a collision warning, if you're potentially gonna get into a front end collision, it can let you know, and at what distance before a potential collision. Let's see, road departure mitigation. Do you want to get a warning? Yay, nay. I'm not a big fan of these ones, but you can turn all of the safety settings off inside of the cluster screen if you really wanted to. Your lane keeping assist, and your blind spot system. That's a big one here. So when somebody enters the blind spot on either side of the vehicle, it's going to highlight to let you know. It's going to give you a heads up right here. So if somebody enters the blind spot on either side of the vehicle, so that side for the driver, opposite side for the passenger. But if somebody enters the blind spot, do you want to get that visual alert or an audible and a visual alert? And basic maintenance information. So if you're changing oil out yourself, you can reset it. And that's the basics for your vehicle. Swiping up to camera, your surround view camera, you could show guidelines on top of that. So you could do either fixed, dynamic, or both. So actually if we hop into reverse right now, so you've got your fixed guidelines, but as I rotate the wheel, it becomes dynamic because it changes up the direction. Kind of neat, but you've got the flexibility of having it strictly for the dynamic guidelines, for the fixed guidelines, or both. I just keep it at both. Cross traffic monitor, as you're going to back up, if somebody is coming perpendicular, so from the left or the right side, it's going to let you know of a potential collision. Do you want to show your camera for a few seconds after you shift from reverse into drive? It's going to only be for a few seconds. And back, all of your sound settings, which we've already seen, and then some basic notifications. So you can see if there are different notifications available. You could actually block any of these out. So if you didn't want to get notifications for certain programs or apps, you could disable them if you'd like. And those are all of your settings. Now, if we look underneath the screen here, you've got your volume rocker, so you can adjust the volume that way. You can push in to mute your audio on the steering wheel. Left pad, same way, you can adjust your volume this way, turn your audio on off this way. And then down the middle here, you could change between songs or stations. There's your 4-way blinkers. You've got dual zone climate control inside of the ride. If the passenger side is set to something different, you can tap sync in order to sync the passenger to the driver's side. You've also got the option of toggling it on off, going to windshield face feet, some sort of Frankenstein combination. There's the air circulate mode, front and rear defrosters. You're at least going to have heated first row seats with the option for ventilated first row, and then you can turn it into an auto mode. There's your dynamic shift mode, so you can switch between snow mode, which is going to play with your traction stability control. Comfort is more of like a relaxed eco driving mode. Normal is just day to day. And as you shift into sport, now look at the cluster there. So it gives you your boost gauge along with your G meter too. So you can kind of see what's going on there. You can also do a little bit of launch control inside of the ride. So with the sport mode enabled, you're just going to hit the brake and then hit the accelerator pedal. It's going to limit you to about 2,000 RPM, but then you're just going to pull your foot off of the brake and then just launch. It's a lot of fun. But you've got different drive modes available there. You're going to probably be in normal mode the majority of the time. There's the auto start stop button here. So that auto start stop, what that one's going to do is when you come down to a complete stop, the engine might turn off. You can toggle that one off if you'd like to, but one thing to note is that every time you turn the vehicle off and then back on again, you've got to turn that back off. You've got your gear shifter here, so your park, reverse, neutral, drive with a sport mode. When you're in any gear outside of park, if you turn the car off, it'll automatically shift you into park. And then you've got your trackpad down the middle. So your back button, home button, right screen button there, and then your main trackpad too. Then if the screen's giving you problems, like let's say Apple CarPlay is not working, Android Auto's not working, navigation's not working, or it's just giving you problems, you could do that full factory reset that we saw earlier, but you can also do a soft reboot. So you've got the 3 buttons along the top of the pad there. So if you press and hold all 3 buttons for a few seconds, that's going to bring you up to this dealer diagnostic screen. So what you're going to do here, go into the detail information and setting. We're not going to change any settings here, but you can do this while you're driving too. You're just going to hit the hardware auto detect. From there, don't change anything. So there are a lot of options here, but not going to change anything. All you're going to do is hit apply along the bottom and then okay. System's going to restart. You're just going to hit yes. And that's just going to do a soft screen reboot. So rather than doing a full factory reset that's going to wipe all the information from the screen, a soft reboot is just going to do exactly that. It's like rebooting your phone. So it's going to clear out the cache and it should get rid of the majority of issues that you're facing inside of the screen. Down low, you're also going to find a 12-volt power point there. And then there's a USB Type-C charge port. So that one's strictly for charging your phone. So there's no data connectivity options available using the port down there. There's a nice amount of space, which is kind of nice. You've got a few cup holders. There's a wireless charge pad that you can toggle off. The armrest here is non-lockable. There's a decent amount of space there. And then that's your USB Type-A port. That's for data transfer, but good amount of space there. You've got that same suede highlight that you saw along the doors. Followed us through the dash on the passenger side. It's a nice little highlight there. The glove box is fully lockable as well. There's a good amount of space inside of that box. Overhead from there, there's an auto-dimming rear view mirror. You can turn that auto-dimming function off, and there's also a home link system. So if you've got a garage door opener at home, you can program it in that way. You've got all of your basic controls here for your lights. So this one is just for your SOS link mode. You could turn on all of your individual lights there if you'd like to. Turn off all of your lights, turn them on, etc. Have them come on when the doors open. And then you've also got, hold on, a little sunglasses holder, and then controls for the full panoramic roof. So with the roof, or I should say the sunshade closed, if you just use this button instead to open up the roof, it's just going to open things up in tandem. So that opens it up the majority of the way. Secondary press is that last little bit. Then you can use the one on the right side in order to fully open up instead. But I mean, that just opens things up so nicely. And push away in order to close. Opens and closes fairly quickly, which is nice. And then from there, once it's closed, if you were to then push, that's going to create a little breeze and then just close again. Simple. There's a little ticket receipt holder on the outside there. There's also a vanity mirror that has lights built in. And then this little feller stretches out, blocking all of the sun that might be hitting your face. You're going to find a little assist handle there with a speaker. So there are a few different speaker choices that are available. This one, the upgraded audio system, sounds fantastic. Let's go ahead and check out that second row. All right, so along the door here, exact same highlights that we saw in the first row. So that suede highlight with a speaker along the door and your window control. There's also some storage along the side there. On the inside, spacing wise, so I've got the driver's seat set up for myself being 6 feet tall, and I've got a good amount of knee space, foot space, and head space sitting fully upright. It's a little tight, like maybe an inch of head space at the very most. So not a ton of space here, which is kind of unfortunate. And yeah, I don't think there's, the seats can't be reclined either. So they're locked into place there. So can I sit back here? Yes. If you were taller than 6 feet though, I wouldn't want to sit in the second row, just in case of a rollover accident. You could technically fit 3 full-size adults in here too. So along the floor, there's no hump in the middle. So if we were to go along the side here, yeah, there you go, you can see, doable. Up overhead with me sitting fully upright here. It's a little tight in the middle seat. So I wouldn't want to sit in the middle row of the middle seat of the second row, I should say, inside of the RDX, but you've got choices. Anchor points are there, top tethers behind the seat if you need them. There are some cup holders that are built in. Ooh, look at that, fancy, that's nice. And from there, you've got some cup holders as well. I like that, actually. It's pretty nice because normally you'd have like something in order to grab onto, but the way that Acura's designed this, you can easily just slide your fingers in order to drop down instead. Nice. You're going to find some pockets behind both the passenger and the driver's side, along with some vent controls back there. And then moving down, you've got some additional controls. So there's the option for heated second row seats, and that's going to be for the outboard. And then there are 2 USB Type-C power points, so strictly for charging, not data transfer. But it is nice. Now the heated seats, like I mentioned, just the outboard. So the middle seat here would never be heated, and that's not a standard feature across every trim level. Up overhead, you're going to find a little handle, hook, and a light. And that's the exact same along the driver's side. So a little handle, just in case there's a hook, and then there's a light with a speaker there too. The back end styling of the RDX is pretty simple. You're going to find dual tip exhaust, the reverse park sensing system, a backup camera, along with the rear wiper in every trim level of the ride. And then there's also a nice simple LED design for the lamps as well. You can tow inside of the RDX, but it is not much at all. So you're maxing out at around 1,500 pound towing capacity. So what's that, 680-ish kilograms? So it's not a huge weight that you can tow by any stretch, but if you're pulling a small trailer, a small boat maybe, or even just like a bike rack carrier, you'll be okay from that perspective. And getting inside of the trunk can be done so many different ways. There's a button just to the left-hand side on the driver's door. Underneath the Acura badge, there's also a button that you can push there to open up. You can use the key fob to do it. And then you're also going to find the option for a foot-activated power liftgate. So as long as you've got the key fob on you, you're just going to swipe your foot in the back. Simple. I like the foot-activated power liftgates. The only downside is that if the sensors are covered in snow, mud, ice, etc., it won't open. But you saw there are plenty of ways to get into the trunk of this ride. And this one has the available rubber tray. Way easier to clean off compared to the carpeted mats. And then off to the right side, you're going to find a little speaker. Off to the left-hand side, you're going to find a little storage area along with a 12-volt power point. And then up high, there are releases for the second row seats. But before we get there, lifting up, you're going to find a great amount of storage space. So there's one little storage space in the front, there's a deeper one on the left-hand side there in the back, and then the top right side, there are a few clips that you can remove in order to gain access to the inflator kit along with the white spigot. So the white spigot is there just in case you ever need to fill up using a jerry can. And then, like I said, the inflator kit. So there's the goop along with the actual inflator. So if you ever puncture a tire, you can try to fill it up yourself. One of the nice things about being an Acura owner is that you do have access to roadside assistance. So that's 4 years, 50,000 miles, and then unlimited mileage up in Canada. So if you ever pop a tire, puncture a tire, you need roadside assistance, you locked yourself out of your vehicle, you need gas, whatever the case may be, call an 800 number and you are covered off there. Like I said, 4 years of coverage. Then, folding down the second row seats inside of the ride can be done from the trunk area, but you can also do it from the second row. So there's a little tab along the top. When you're doing it from the trunk, you're just gonna pull the lever along the side and then push the seat down. And it's a 60-40 bench, so 60 on the driver, 40 on the passenger. But there is a pretty good amount of space inside of this ride. And then the cargo measurements that you're looking at here, specifically behind the first row, those ones go right from where that liftgate door would close to just in behind the little armrest between the first row seats. So you might lose or gain a little bit of extra space, just depending on how far forward or backwards your seats are. But a great amount of space inside of the RDX. This is one of the benefits of it not having a third row. You just get so much more cargo space. So if you don't need a 6 or a 7-seater, the RDX could be the right car for you. Then it's going to be manual up in order to raise those seats. And one cool thing about the liftgate is that if you find it's too high for your garage, you can move it down to whatever level you'd like to, so high or low. Then there's a button along the top right side there, along the door. You can push and hold in order to be able to set a unique, there we go. You can push and hold to set a unique height. So if you wanted it to open up to a certain level, like let's say if you set it here, push and hold that button, it wouldn't open up past that point. So if you're too short to reach the button, whatever the case may be, you've always got that option of setting it to your own unique height and then just button push in order to close. Filling up fuel inside of the RDX is done just along the driver's side. And one nice thing is that when the door's locked, that fuel door is also locked. So you just have to unlock in order to be able to get inside. Now, one nice thing about the Acura world is filling up fuel. So it is a capless system. Minimum manufacturer's recommendation is actually an 87 octane. So the minimum recommended is a 91. The minimum required is an 87. So just a regular fuel is all you technically need to use. Inside of a 2-liter turbocharged engine, you can get away with 87, no problem. It's just that when you use something that's not recommended, it could lead to engine knocking. I've scoured a bunch of RDX forums. Most people that have said they've used a regular 87 octane haven't had any sort of issues. So if it's in the budget, I would personally go for an 89 or a 91. Acura does recommend a 91, but it doesn't require it. So that's just the difference in language there. When you look at the overall fuel economy that you get inside of the ride, you are going to get pretty solid economy numbers as long as you're not gunning it as you drive. Well, I've averaged out about 8 liters per 100 in the initial test that I did picking this car up, strictly highway driving. It's going the speed limit. So if you tend to go a bit over the limit, you gun it when the light turns green, whatever the case may be, you are going to use up a little bit more fuel. But as long as you granny drive it, you're going to get pretty good economy inside of this ride. And here we go. Wow. All right, hold on, I gotta do another wrap, but this time in sport mode. So the sport mode inside of this ride puts it into a sport suspension instead. Oh yeah. And the handling that you get, oh, so nice. That's fantastic. Oh, that's good. Obviously, you're not going to be pushing it as much here as you would be on highways or interstates, but yeah, that was pretty good. And this is the benefit of sport mode. So the RDX doesn't have a Type S, so a more powerful version, which would be amazing. But the 2-liter that you get inside of every trim level of the ride is pretty good. The inside of the RDX is fairly quiet too. Little bit of road noise, but active noise cancellation absolutely helps it out. This is great. And the overall interior comfort-wise is good. This one has a little over 7,000 kilometers on it right now, but the seat, it's nice and comfortable. No complaints at all. And that was everything you needed to know about the Acura RDX. You can find all of the build details for this ride down in the description, along with links off to Acura Canada and US. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and until I see you next time, take care. Underneath the hood, ooh, wrong way. Underneath the hood of the TLX RDX.